Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I'm sharing another what I eat in a day as a vegan. For breakfast this day I made some toasted banana oat clusters, and for this I first peeled and broke up one banana into a bowl. I then mashed that up using a potato masher. To that I then added 1 cup of porridge oats, 3 tablespoons of coconut nectar, my favourite is by Coconut Merchant and this is like a honey alternative, and a pinch of salt. I just mixed that all together. I then added a teaspoon of coconut oil into my flat pancake pan, melted it right down, turned the heat down low, then I added in the banana oat mixture. I then just turned that over so it gradually toasted. I used the spatula to break it up a little, but it naturally forms these little clusters. You could also place this on a lined greased baking tray and bake it in the oven for around 20 minutes. It will be a little more crunchy, but I like lightly toasting it. It makes them like these soft little bites of chewiness. I also mixed together around 4 tablespoons of Cocoa Dairy Freeze coconut yogurt with a splash of their coconut milk to make like a thinner yogurt consistency. Then at this point the clusters were nicely toasted, so I placed half of those into a bowl. Then I poured in the yogurt and added the rest of the clusters on top. I then just added on some fresh blueberries and some pecan pieces on the top. Today's video is kindly sponsored by the Matcha Reserve. You guys know I love their matcha, in particular their vanilla matcha. I live for vanilla matcha lattes, so I had one with my breakfast. I take around 2 scoops using a bamboo chesaku and place it in a matcha bowl. I add in a splash of water, then whisk it back and forth using a bamboo matcha whisk to make it into a slight paste. I then add that into a cup and then just warm through some oat milk in a pan. I always use Oatly Barista milk. Then using a frother just to froth up the milk, I pour it into the glass, give it a stir and then just sprinkle some more matcha over the top. It's just such a nice warm drink, and as I've said before, since I'm not much of a coffee lover, this is a great alternative for an energy boost, and the vanilla flavour in this just sweetens it nicely. The Matcha Reserve have also very kindly offered to donate 10% of sales made through my link in the description box below to a charity or cause of my choice. For this I've chosen Mino Valley Farm Animal Sanctuary. Abigail and Mike are a vegan couple who moved from the UK to run a rescue and rehabilitation centre for abused and abandoned farm animals in Spain. And amongst the animals in their care are donkeys, goats, pigs, sheep, cows and rabbits, to name a few. I regularly follow their stories and updates. The rescues they do are just amazing. They work tirelessly, and I know that they're so incredibly grateful for any donations, great or small. And as a non-profit organisation, any donations help them to continue carrying out emergency rescues and help to support the work that they do. You can also sponsor animals in their care. You can make a one-off donation with PayPal or become a monthly supporter. I will leave all of the information and a link to their website in the description box below this video. And once again, a big thank you to the Matcha Reserve for sponsoring today's video and for being so generous in offering to donate 10% of any sales made. And the matcha was really nice with my breakfast. As I said, these are like little soft chewy clusters. They're best made up on the day. I tend to just make a portion up at a time as it's so simple to do. I sometimes also add in some almond butter as well. I just love the taste of warm banana, and with the coconut milky yogurt, the blueberries and pecans, it was all just really delicious. As a snack mid-morning, I just peeled some strips of cucumber using a potato peeler. I then took a rice cake on a plate, spread on some hummus, then I placed on the peeled cucumber and I sprinkled over some hemp seeds, some sunflower seeds and some pumpkin seeds. It was just a really quick, easy and light snack, but enough to keep me going through until lunchtime. I often have a rice cake with hummus and some kind of extra topping because it's just so simple, but there are so many different ways that you can make them. Then for lunch, I made some almond, sun-dried tomato and olive pesto pasta. For this, I added 1/3 of a cup of raw almonds to my Magimix food processor. along with 1/3 of a cup of sun-dried tomatoes, 1/3 of a cup of black olives, 1/3 of a cup of fresh basil, 2 peeled garlic cloves, the juice of half a lemon, 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, 1 teaspoon of capers, 1/4 teaspoon of dried chili flakes, and some salt and black pepper. I then just popped the lid on and blended it up until it formed a thick paste, which ended up looking a little something like this. I then poured some boiling water in a pan over on a medium heat, added in a good pinch of salt and then a large handful of whole wheat penne pasta. I cooked that for about 8 to 10 minutes until it was al dente, and then I took it over to the sink to drain it off in a colander. I put the pasta back in the pan and then I added in half of the pesto. The other half can be stored in an airtight container in the fridge and used within around 3 days. I gave that a really good stir through until it was well coated. Then I transferred it over to a pasta dish. I then just topped it with some small fresh basil leaves. I cooked way too much pasta, I always do that, but I ate it all anyway. I've made a few different thick pesto/pastes using roasted red peppers, olives and sun-dried tomatoes before, and this is just another version. I thought the almonds would be a really good alternative to pine nuts. There's still some kind of chunky pieces of almond in there, which is really nice, and all of the flavours work lovely together. Like I said, any leftovers can be kept in the fridge in an airtight container. I actually used the rest of it the next day to make falafels. I just blended it up in my food processor with a can of rinsed chickpeas and baked those in the oven. They were delicious, so it's pretty versatile too. Later on in the day, I grabbed a snack from my little snack bin. This is just where I keep my energy bars and things like that. I went for this Rhythm 108 sweet and salty almond bar. It's a Swiss vegan milk chocolate bar with an oat and almond butter filling. It's actually like praline, and I'm not usually the biggest fan of praline, but these are incredible. The chocolate on the outside is so good. When vegan milk chocolate is done right, it's just the best, and the centre is delicious. They do a few other flavours of these, including a hazelnut chocolate one, but this one is definitely my favourite. For dinner, I made this kind of creamy vegetable and chickpea tagine stew. I first preheated the oven to 180 degrees Celsius. I then sliced an aubergine in half and then sliced up each half. I placed those on a silicone baking sheet, brushed one side with some olive oil, then turned them over and brushed the other side. Then placed those in the oven to roast on one side for around 15 minutes. Meanwhile, I added 1 tablespoon of oil to a large pan on a medium heat. I then added in a teaspoon of mustard seeds, stirred them through the oil and left them until they began to pop. I had sliced up 1 white onion, so I added that in next. Then I'd minced 2 cloves of garlic, I added that in too, and then I just cooked that off for around a minute. Next I added in around a pinch of cayenne pepper, half a teaspoon of dried chili flakes, 1 teaspoon of paprika, a teaspoon of ground cumin and a teaspoon of ground coriander. I mixed the spices through well, and then at this point I turned the aubergine slices over to roast on the other side. Next to the pan I added in 2 tablespoons of harissa paste and 1 tablespoon of tomato puree. I stirred those through everything well, then allowed it to continue cooking while I sliced up 1 courgette. I added that to the pan, and then I roughly chopped a red pepper and a green pepper, added those in too and gave it a good stir through. I then removed the roast aubergine from the oven and added that to the pan along with 150 grams of tender stem broccoli and 1 can of rinsed drained chickpeas. I stirred that through, then I added in a can of chopped tomatoes, a can of coconut milk, a good handful of fresh chopped coriander, then seasoned it with some salt and black pepper. I gave that another good stir, Then brought it up to a gentle boil before moving it over to a low heat to leave it to simmer for around 15 minutes. Meanwhile, I cut up a head of cauliflower into florets, filled a medium-sized pan with boiling water, then placed the florets in a sieve and put it over the boiling water with a lid on top. This is like my lazy way of steaming. I allowed that to steam for around 10 minutes. I then attached the large grating disc to my Magimix food processor, and I then placed a few florets in at a time to grate them up, which created rice-like pieces of cauliflower and looked a little bit like this. I first plated up the cauliflower rice, then I added on some of the creamy vegetable and chickpea stew on top. I finished it with some coconut yogurt and some fresh chopped coriander scattered over the top. I don't want to call this a tagine because it's not one, but it's kind of along the lines that I wanted to go with this dish. I had the idea for it and I love the thought of pairing harissa with coconut milk. I just think it's such a bright and colourful dish packed full of so much flavour. Of course you could use whichever veggies you like in this. Mushrooms, green beans and carrots would also be great, though I felt that this was a good combination. I loved the broccoli in it. You don't have to roast the aubergine, I just like doing it this way. You could just add it in along with the courgette and the peppers. And instead of the cauliflower rice, you could serve this with couscous or quinoa, brown rice or wild rice. And this made around 4 portions, so any leftovers can be frozen in an airtight container. Then for dessert, I made this warm blueberry and chocolate pot. For this, I first placed a small handful of fresh blueberries in a ramekin. I then took a few squares of dark chocolate. This is the green and black 70% dark chocolate. Placed those in the pot. Then I added in some more blueberries and then a few more squares of chocolate. I then microwaved that for around 20 seconds. I never use my microwave, but this just makes it so quick and easy. And the result is these little bursts of gooey blueberries with warm melted chocolate. You guys know that fruit and chocolate is one of my go-to desserts, but this is amazing and so good with strawberries and or raspberries too. Don't forget to check out the Matcha Reserve and Mino Valley Farm Animal Sanctuary, linked in the description box below. I will have all of the recipes written there too. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching and I will see you again soon. Bye!